everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Heartpanorama. I'm your host Michelle, and today I'd like to talk about how to be productive. Like in all of my previous podcast episodes, I'd like to remind you that any mentions of brands, products, or services in this podcast are only included for discussion purposes and are not paid or sponsored. I'm just including things to discuss things properly. Also, I'd like to add a quick disclaimer here because I'm talking about how to be productive, but this is not a guideline that you can follow step by step, but it's just based upon what I've learned during my studies and during work. So it's all based on personal experience, and I can't assure you that everything I talk about here is based on any studies or other kind of data. So as we're talking about productivity, we all know how easy it is to procrastinate and feel guilty for that and feel like you could have been doing much more with your time instead of just lying around and doing nothing. And before you get the illusion of me being productive all day, I'm not, to be honest. And here's what works for me when I feel like I want to be more productive and I'm really trying. So these are just a few points that work for me. Maybe they work for you too, but you'll have to try it out. First of all, I'm a fan of to-do lists, as I mentioned in one of my previous podcasts. So I usually would like to jot down all the tasks I'd like to accomplish in a certain amount of time and try to finish as many as possible on that list. And I recommend you to write down your tasks as well, so you have an overview of what you need to do and can plan accordingly. Also, don't be discouraged if you don't finish all the tasks on your list within a day or so, because you can always renew your list. And I found an app for managing your to-do list because I was tired of rewriting all my tasks on a sheet of paper, and it was also wasting paper. So I looked for an app that did that for me. And I found one that is called Tick Tick, but there are also other apps that are quite similar on the App Store or on the Google Play Store. You just have to look for to-do lists or checklists, and you can choose which one works best for you. So you have a broad choice, so to say, because I had a really hard time choosing a certain app, and I was just trying different ones out, and that was the one I ended up with. If there are tasks with deadlines, create an overview so you don't miss a deadline, and divide or structure your work process accordingly, because if you don't focus on the things that need to be finished within a certain deadline, you might get caught up with other tasks and completely forget about the one with the deadline, and then you'll get stressed, and that doesn't really add to your motivation, and in my experience also not to your productivity. As we talk about deadlines, also set priorities and figure out what tasks need to be done first, because certain tasks just need more time and effort and you'd like to do them right. Furthermore, something that I'd like to do for myself is that I set a schedule for myself, even though certain tasks don't have any deadlines, but I'd like to finish them at a certain date. So I try to set up deadlines for myself. And something that I've come to realize is that it will take some time at the beginning until you figure out how long you will need for each task or for a special task. So you'll have to try different things out, and when you realize that something that you have to do repeatedly takes a certain amount of time, then you will know how long it will take and you can plan much better. Something that probably a lot of people might tell you is that you should eliminate distractions around you, because if you're in an environment with several distractions, it is harder to concentrate and therefore harder to be productive. And nowadays, I think the biggest distraction are technical devices such as your smartphone, and that's why I saw a lot of different apps popping up that help you focusing on your task at hand and not look at your phone all the time. And something that I used during my studies when I had to write papers and do research and tried not to look at my phone all the time was an app that is called Forest. And in this app, you could schedule how long you'd like to study or do something else. It wasn't specifically for studies only, but for all kinds of tasks actually. So you could set a timer, and in the time that you didn't look at your phone, a tree was growing virtually. And whenever you opened a different app on your phone, the tree would die. So it was quite a motivation to not look at different apps on your phone. And this is not the only app that does that. There are different other apps that track the time that you spend on your phone and your screen time, so you have a bit more control over that and can see how much your phone actually distracts you. And also, apart from your phone, there might be other things that distract you, so try to keep your workplace clear. Don't have too many knickknacks on there so you don't get distracted from your task, because that doesn't really help with you being productive. So now I mentioned the place where you work, and this is actually my next point, because you should find a comfortable spot where you can work, and maybe you can change it every once in a while. For example, when I was studying, I was sometimes sitting in the living room, sometimes going to my own room, sometimes sitting on the desk or on the bed or some other place. When I was at university, I went to the library, or when I was doing group project, we were in a studying room. There were certain rooms in our building that were set apart for groups that can work together, so you don't have to meet up in the cafeteria or so. And for me personally, it was quite good to change the place where you work every once in a while, because you don't get bored and don't feel so demotivated because you are sitting on the spot all the time and the whole day. So you could change your view a bit and refresh your motivation somehow to be more productive and work properly. And I know that in your workplace, so to say in your job's workplace, not at home, you might not be as flexible as you would be when you're studying. So you'll have to make do with what you have. So for example, you have different tasks that involve sitting at the desk or walking around in the company because you'll have to talk to other people from different departments or so. Try to mix it up a bit so your workday will be a bit more diverse and not so boring, so to say. So for example, if you really don't feel like sitting at your desk anymore and you have other tasks that can be done at another place, or you have little tasks that you can do in between to loosen up your day a bit, then try to do them in between so your mind can take a quick break. I know at first this might sound a bit strange because we're talking about how to be productive, and if I advise you to do another task, you might wonder, wait, does this even help? But in my experience, at least, it really helps to do different things in between if I'm really not motivated to do the main task that I'm actually working on, and I really need a break from that task because it gets really demotivating and you feel like you've been doing this task all day and you can't seem to finish this one. And a lack of motivation really doesn't work well with being productive, at least where I'm concerned, and that's why I usually try to knowingly do other things in between. I've noticed this, at least when I was studying, that when I forced myself to do something when I wasn't really in the mood to do so, it wouldn't turn out good anyway, so I might as well take a break. So especially when you're studying or when you are working on projects that you can coordinate on your own and where you have your own schedule and you're not tied to any expectations that you should finish something within a certain amount of time, then you can go ahead and just decide, okay, I will take a break now because my mind needs to rest. And it won't do the project any good if you force yourself to be productive, because especially when you force yourself to be productive, you won't be. I know this won't always work when you're applying this to a full-time job, because you're often under observation and you'll have to work all through the day. But even then, you can decide to take a short coffee break or just something like a 5-minute break. It already helps. And you don't have to force yourself to be concentrated all the time, because your mind gets tired and your productivity will kind of deteriorate. I don't know how to describe it. It's just something that I've been experiencing in the past few years, because I've also known a few people who, for example, stressed themselves out because they had to study and they had different deadlines and they had to finish their work. And they always said, I can't meet up with you, or I can't chat because I have so much to do. And I think this is kind of the wrong way to deal with that, because you don't give yourself a break, and your body and your mind both need a break, because they won't be able to have all the energy to help you be productive. So you knowingly have to take a break and not be tied to the fact that you have to be busy and you have to be productive, because being busy doesn't always mean that you're actually productive. Touching the subject of procrastination a bit here is that what I've realized is that once you started tackling your tasks, it gets easier to get things done and not fall into the habit of long-term procrastination, because once you start the day lazy, then you feel like you could lie around a bit more, especially on weekends when you don't really have to do anything, but you wanted to tackle certain things, for example, go shopping or run errands or finish a house project or anything. And you just sit there or lie there and watch movies, and you didn't really plan to, because you wanted to be productive in a different kind of way, and then you feel bad because you procrastinated. So I realized that when you actually start doing your task first, it will be easy to finish that one and maybe start a different task that you also wanted to accomplish. And then to relax, you can just finish the day off with that. Or even if you finish the 1 or 2 tasks that you wanted really to accomplish in that day, then you can sit down and do whatever you like. So you feel like this is a kind of reward instead of a procrastination. And it just has to do something with timing and motivating yourself to do the things first that you need to do. And that's something that my parents taught me from when I was little, because they said, first, you have to finish the tasks that you need to do before you can relax and do fun stuff. And that might sound quite harsh, or not harsh, but kind of strict. But it's a quite helpful way to go about things. And even now, when I have days off and I would like to finish this and that project, and I tend to procrastinate, and I really feel bad about not having started the day with these tasks, and think about, why haven't I finished that first before I started reading a book or watching a movie or so. So this was my take on how I try to be productive. I hope some of the points maybe help you. Thank you so much for listening. Please like this podcast if you enjoyed the things that I discussed here, or if any of those help you. And please leave a comment if you have any tips as well. I like to hear them or read them. And also, for further podcasts, please subscribe and activate your notification bell so you can stay tuned whenever a new episode comes up. For further information, as always, check out the links in my description below this video. And until next time, believe in yourself and do what you love. Take care. Bye.